And we have Norm Brecke coming up. Norm, we have something for you there.
Something, there was nothing there a minute ago. Huh. Meatloaf sandwich. Any of you have everything figured out when you were 15 years old? No? Maybe a couple. Elena, I knew it. Well, I did not. I did not. The world was confusing for me. Girls were, well, they were interesting, but they were confusing. And family life seemed confusing. Relationships that had been so easy when you're a little boy get complicated. But I did know that if I worked very hard at sports, that I would get better. Even if I wasn't very good, I could work at that thing and I would get better. And my favorite was baseball. I loved baseball. And now my father had well, my mother really. My mother gave me a glove when I was just about 8 years old. Had a little ball in it, and I got that, and I was so excited. I had a ball and a glove, and I asked my dad, "You want to play catch?" No, he was too busy. My brothers, too busy. My mom, she played catch with me. And so my mother taught me how to kind of throw the ball back and forth. But then I had a great discovery. My sister Carrie, she knew how to throw. And she taught me how to throw a ball and back and forth. And so I joined a team, and I learned that I could get better. And so I was 15 years old. I just finished playing freshman baseball, and I played some. I was a pitcher, and I played center field, little catcher. But I was mostly good at hitting. And I thought, and that year I'd done okay. But there was this interesting time, this 1 week off between the freshman season and the Babe Ruth baseball season. Now, if you don't understand baseball, you should know that everybody plays in the Little League. Everybody plays, T-ball. Everybody plays. Everybody gets to bat every inning. Doesn't matter. Nobody's ever out. And then you get a little older, and you have to play for real, Pee Wee, and then Little Leagues, and then you get to Babe Ruth. And while that's all going on, there's less and less people showing up. And by the time you get to Babe Ruth, we had 9 teams in my town, Coos Bay, North Bend. And I had played 2 years, and then I just played them, and I knew. Now, this was going to be the last year playing with people that weren't really that serious about it. And I played all the time. I was pretty serious about it. Actually, my family knows. And so I was going to be good for the first time. I had worked very hard at it, and I knew I was going to be good that season, because the next season after that was American Legion, and there's one team again. And I'm going to be playing with 18-year-old men, the big boys. And so I was so excited. I was going to play, and so I worked. I was going to hit off the tee all weekend. I was going to throw the ball up in the air. I was going to throw the ball against the wall. I was going to do whatever I could to be. I was just going to practice that whole weekend. We were going to start the season the next week, and I was going to be good. And I was so excited. I got up on Saturday morning, and I was ready to go. And I was getting ready to go out, and my dad, for some inexplicable reason, came home on a Saturday. And he came home and he said, "Let's go on a picnic." I don't want to go on a picnic. And my sister, who was 5 years older than me, she was home, and she said, "Oh, I have a paper I'm supposed to write with my friend Jane Davidson," and she was out the door. She was my ally. She was gone. my little sister, Sammy, and my mom, of course, she said, yes, we're going to make this happen. We had nothing ready for a picnic. But we did have some meatloaf, and so she had some bread, and she made them with the mustard, and she put them in our little styrofoam cooler, of course, and filled the cooler full of some things. And then, of course, we had a second cooler that was filled with beer, Blitz beer. And filled that up for Dad, and loaded the car up, and we got in, and I was trapped. Now, we were all four of us crammed in the cab of the truck, and Dad was way over there, and this real confident look on his face, and a cigar in his mouth. And my mom, and then my little sister, and then I was next to the window. And so we started to drive, and my dad turned on the radio, country western station, local station, North Bend, and it was in a little house. You could drive by it, and if the guy was on the air talking at the time, and you drove by and you honked the horn, he'd go, "Hey there, happy horn honker!" Love it. And so my dad loved that station, and he would just keep it on if you could even just hear it a little. So now it was pretty easy. We were going to Laverne Park, which is near Coquille. And so there's an easy way to get there. You go to Coquille, and then you take this other road, and you get right up there. But Dad didn't like that way. He had to always go over the mountains, no matter where it was. If we were going fishing, we were going to go over the mountain to get there, and it would take sometimes 3 times as long to get there. And you'd go on these roads, and you'd start to drive back and forth and wind around, and the radio would be going, and would be going. And my dad would be looking for deer. He'd be looking for deer, and he could spot a deer from 500 feet, that was up on the top, and he's driving on this swervy road, and he's got a beer between his legs, and there's a deer! He'd stop the car, and he'd have to show you, and by golly, there'd be a deer up there. Meanwhile, while he was doing that, I was watching the fields go by. And every field, cow pasture really, I would look at that field and I'd make it into a baseball field. Now, if this is a baseball field, where would the backstop be? Now, where would the grandstand be? Okay, the fence would be over here. Next field would come along. I'd do the same thing. And it just occupied my mind the whole time while we listened to country western. And now, we listened to it for a little while, but not very long, really, because after a while, you're cheating hard. And just about that, you kind of reach over and think, okay, I'm going to get it off before, and then he'd go around the corner, we'll make it. The station was back. We keep it on again until the whole cycle would begin again. So finally we get to Laverne Park, and we drive in, and as we're driving in, there's in the family, or in the group picnic area, is the Elks Club. Now, in the Elks Club, there's a bunch of men in their short-sleeve shirts. And they have red, puffy faces. They're a little overweight, and they're all over there cooking. Well, they look very much like I look now. At the time, I was thinner. Anyway, they were drinking their Blitz beer and sometimes Oli, and they were over there. And now my dad was in the Elks Club. This made sense. Might be why we were there. My mom immediately said, "Let's go down to the end near the swimming hole." So Dad did. He turned the corner, and we drove past a little softball field. And on the softball field, there was a big game going on. And Dad said, "Hey, maybe you can play some ball." And I look out at the field, and there's ragtag crew of people, and there's a keg at second base. and the game was that if you got close to second base, ideally if you hit the ball and got to second base, but everybody just seemed to be at second base a lot. And then you'd have to chug a beer, and then go. And I was not going to participate in that game. So we got to the end, and immediately we got the styrofoam out, and we laid a blanket down, and Dad laid down on the blanket. And he had his little short-sleeved shirt with his puppy face. And he got out a couple of beers, cracked them open, chugged the first one down, sat under the trees, and looked around nature, and, well, fell asleep. My mom and my sister, they went down to the swimming hole, and I got out a tee and a bucket of balls, and I started hitting the balls. I was hitting those balls, and I was waving that bat up around and smacking the ball, and I was practice and all different, if the ball's outside, it's over here. You don't need to know all that. But I really worked at it. And then I would run around to get all the balls, and as I was doing that, I could see my dad on the blanket over there, and he'd be kind of straight, and then this big, kind of like Charlie Brown's pitcher's mouth, sticking up there, and he looked sound asleep. And as I hit the second bucket, I hit a ball, and I'd look back, and I hit those balls. Finally cleaned them up. My mom got back, and we had a little lunch, our meatloaf sandwiches. And then afterward, I was going to go hit another bucket of balls. And all of a sudden, my dad says, hey, come over here. He goes over to the truck, and he opens the door, and he goes under the seat. Now, under that seat, there were a lot of things under that seat. Usually a shotgun or a rifle. But in this case, he pulled out this flat, kind of leather red thing. It was his glove, an old-fashioned glove with a big padding. It went on his right hand. He was left-handed. And he said, hey, Norm, you want to play catch? I said, yeah, sure. I had never played catch with my dad. He stood a little ways away, and I threw the ball to him. He threw the ball. We didn't say anything. We just threw that ball back and forth. I take it back. We did say something once in a while. Oh, throwing high. Sorry. 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 We played catch maybe 15 minutes that way. And finally Dad said, oh, my arm is killing me. I gotta stop. I said, well, thanks for playing catch with me. We put the things back in, and as I was doing that, he says to me, you know when you're batting, you're waving the bat way up here, you might want to try flattening it down like this. You have a quicker bat that way. I said, oh, yeah, maybe I'll try that. We got in the car and went home. I started the season the next week, and it was a magic season. It seemed like I was good. You see, when I went to play in the first game, I thought, oh, maybe I'll try this. And that year, I never played catch with my dad again. But I have to say, that year, I took his advice, and I led the league in hitting. I'd like to invite Thomas Schroeder back up here, and I'll give him his